Welcome to Discovering. For most of us, when we're looking for antlers, it's fall and they're attached to a deer's head. But springtime is a great time to get out and look for the ones that got away.
Looks like an older one and a newer one right there.
And a look at our battle with the emerald ash borer. Stick around, it's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Oh, good girl. Let's go. Let's find some toys. Come on.
Shed hunting is a sport that's growing by leaps and bounds these days. There are shed antler record books, shed expos, and more. You might think it's a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack, but with a bit of planning and a little effort, you can certainly increase your odds, or at least narrow down which haystack to look in.
See, there's another good trail here. Yeah. No ground hornets, no mosquitoes, no wood ticks, no poison ivy. I'm watching the runways here because I knew they were traveling here just the first part of the snow. It just gives me a little indication, but you can find them anywhere, you know. They're just looking for a nice place to lay down. We've been just crossing an area where you would never see deer, like in an open poplar. Pull up an antler. We looked last year with one of our handicap participants, and we walked all these nice trails because he could stay with us, you know, with the four-wheeler. We walked out to the field to check what the logger was doing. And while we were talking, she comes walking up with an antler. So, of course, we all got online and we found two more. There's one right there. Are you gonna fetch a toy for us? No, not gonna play right now, huh? But it's usually 50-50 between Ivy and I. My friends think I cheat because I use the dog, you know. But tell them I'm not a slouch either, you know. You like this toy? Huh? You like this toy? You want this toy? You want this toy? Huh? Been chewed on a little bit, huh? Some rodents been out here. Oh, good girls. Oh, good girls. Let's take a little walk that way, and then we'll continue down through the grass. We might find the other half. Very seldom do I find two antlers that match. We've had days where we find all lefts. You know, all lefts, and you're just going, what's the deal? Last year, the corn in Delta County stayed in the fields a long time, so we were checking the cornfields last year. We only found one, but I could see as a farmer that'd be quite a hazard, you know. You know, an area like this doesn't look like a lot of traffic is in it. You take a look at this kind of area, because in the wintertime, with a little snow, this would have been a very comfortable spot to sit and watch this field from. Plus, that thing's to bump antlers on. If I'm watching the travel areas and I'm looking for bed down areas, there's something in these grasses they need first part of the spring, so they're digging in them. So that would been a bounce so that the antler will fall off. And just an easier area to see. I worked for an insurance man who lived out west, and they had the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts were collecting antlers from sheds from deer and elk, and they were making furniture and stuff out of them, and it was a fundraiser for them. Well, this could be a fundraiser here too, you know. You see the nice little centerpieces with the antlers, especially the large antlers. Once they've been chewed on maybe by a porcupine, they really add a lot of character, you know, for a centerpiece. And even an anti-hunter, the deer was never killed, so it's not that, you know, terrible a thing, you know, like a couple feathers or a deer antler. You know, it's just a nice part of living up here. this fellows from the game farm aren't going to give up a Boone and Crockett, but something that's Boone and Crockett that got chewed on, all mossy, you could see that that could be a real centerpiece. Ivy! I can see the deer have been in here. It's knocked down, so they've probably been bedding in here. They're probably watching the field. The activity quits in the house and they come out and feed in the evenings. Oh yeah, see what Ivy's got. Ivy! Of course, Ivy's a boot dog. She doesn't go very far. Ivy! It's like just like bird hunting. If you're not going to pay attention to her, there's no sense bringing her along, you know. So that's part of the game. At least if we're not paying attention, she is. We tried to keep the antler away from anything else that we did hunting-wise. That's why we use the word toy. We let her have some of these in the pen with her. It's a good chew toy too, you know, for the dog. Well, we did. We played the fetch game with her, you know, just like we would a pheasant wing. We hide the deer antlers, and we know that when they've come back with the deer antlers, they're going to get a lot of praise. I try not to use treats. She knows I'm happy about her finding something like that. Let's take a look over here. This looks like a good spot. Like I said, I'm trying not to goof up my bird dog either. You know, if I was a purist, you know, it would be a different story, but I'm not. It's just some other reason for me to get in the woods. Good girl. Looking for toys? You looking for toys? Ah, you looking for toys? Oh, you looking for a drink? Ah, you looking for a drink? Are you looking for toys? Are you looking for toys? Oh, okay, now find me one. I want a good one. Ivy, look what we got. You walked right by these toys. Oh no, she's in. She's in. Oh yeah. This is what we were looking for right here. We're looking for a good one. He's an up and comer. Oh, look at a nice brow tine on him. Actually, with that base, I'd say it probably wasn't that young a deer, really. Maybe even a deer on his way down, you know. All right, let's see if we can find the other one. It might be laying right here. Oh yeah, you like those. If I found one antler, especially a good antler, I'd like to always find a pair. But it generally doesn't run that way. Generally, if we're, you know, I've had a number of days where we found 6 antlers, large antlers, and not a single pair. But I always make an effort when I am in an area where I find a good one to look for the pair. Because it could have been a bedded area. I have found both antlers. You can see the deer was probably laying right there, and the antlers are laying right, like the deer was they just fell off him while he was sleeping there. But yeah, when you get something like this, you know, we just walk on usually. But where we found this antler today, I'll make sure that we check this spot. I can see the squirrels have chewed on it a little teeny bit, but for some reason that buck liked that spot. So if it has the same conditions next year, that's probably where he's going to be laying again. Come on, Ivy, on task. Find us a good one. Generally, I got to carry one because if we bump grouse, you got to put her back on task. You know, looking for deer sheds in the springtime is just as big a hoot as hunting deer. To find a real good shed or even a small shed, it's every bit as much fun as the hunt. And a little better, maybe because we got catch and release involved in this. There's 2. Talk about a double. Looks like an older one and a newer one right there. Actually, this looks like the other half of our deer right there. See, a happy spot. Oh yeah, definitely last year's. 5 feet apart. A little bit of chew on it from the porcupine or rabbit. No, I don't think they're a match. Could be relatives though. Ivy, come, what do you got? Six new and one old. I bet we could walk right through the same area again and come up with more antlers. We just walked by them.
They were first discovered in Detroit in 2002 and are now responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of ash trees across North America. I talked with Hruska, district manager at the Dickinson Conservation District, about the emerald ash borer.
Emerald ash borer has been in the state of Michigan since 2002. They believe it came in on shipping pallets from China, someplace in Asia. Emerald ash borer is native to Asia, and you usually find it in China, Korea, a little bit in Japan. There, it's a native insect, so it does take its toll on trees, but it doesn't tend to kill them. When it got here, there are no natural defenses against emerald ash borer, and the trees are not adapted to emerald ash borer. So pretty much it's a death sentence for the ash, any ash that are encountered by emerald ash borer in America. And right now, they're pretty much saying all of our ash are at risk. They say blue ash and white ash might be slightly less, susceptible to it, but by and large, the MDARD blanketly usually just says all of our ash are at worry. The green ash, the black ash. This is a swamp here. You can kind of see the standing water. Typical place to find black ash, and not an easy place to get in and out of, but a really necessary part of the habitat. A lot of the wildlife depends on ash in our ecosystem. Here we'll be dealing with it probably less in the landscaped environment and more in the natural environment. And ash, in certain areas is quite a large component of the deciduous hardwood forest. New this year is that emerald ash borer moved into Dickinson County and Marquette County. So that spurred the expansion of the quarantine against the movement of ash wood between counties. But right now there's only 3 western counties in the UP that are not quarantined. Everything else, all other 12 counties in the UP, so from Dickinson east and then up to Houghton, are all quarantined as what they call level 2 quarantine. The entire lower peninsula is a level 1 quarantine, which means that it's so widespread, it's considered to be everywhere. And so you can move things within quarantine counties, but you can't move things out of a quarantine county and into an unquarantined county. That's the bottom line. We're talking about the movement of wood because emerald ash borer in itself is kind of a weak flyer. They are only known to fly about a half a mile a year themselves, or that's about as far as they'll travel. So it's people usually that move the wood and that transport it and really make those big jumps in distance. It's not just firewood, it's the logging industry as well. So we have a lot of timber, standing timber in the UP, for instance, that is ash, and we have to figure out now what to do with it, where to move it, how to process it. The recommendation is to remove as much ash as you can now before it's standing dead. So our foresters for the last few years have been recommending that folks remove all but about 10% of the basal area of the ash in a forest, partly to decrease the population that's susceptible to it, to increase the diversity of the woods, to start adding in different species that wouldn't be plagued by emerald ash borer, and to make good use of the wood. I mean, it's very valuable wood. It's great firewood, high BTU value, a lot of landscape value as well. So if we can make good use of that wood now, it's a good plan. The challenge that we're going to be facing now is that there there will be a lot of ash to be harvested out of the woods, and you have to find markets for them. We suspect that those markets will be flooded very quickly, so it's kind of best if folks act sooner rather than later. Work with a forester to maybe help identify the level of ash to take out of your woods. Ash is kind of interesting because it will sucker, kind of like a popple does when you cut it down. So it will replenish the forest that way, and it also is a very prolific seeder. So when you cut ash out, if you leave too big of a gap, you will have a forest of little tiny ash trees. They just grow like green beans. It is a prolific reseeder, but we're not looking to repopulate the woods with a monoculture of new ash trees. We want diversity is going to be the key to fighting any kind of pest, so that there isn't all the same species that can be impacted. How they located emerald ash borer in Dickinson County has been part of a long-term trapping process. So you probably have seen those purple triangular traps that hung from trees that's been going on for a number of years. Well, they found their first emerald ash borer adult in a trap, and then you start looking around and you're going to see it all over the place. So you're not seeing the action of the bug, you're seeing the action of woodpeckers. This is the native bark, and this tan part here is where woodpeckers have worked away at this tree trying to get at those pupal or those late larval phases. They lodge themselves right underneath the bark, so they're not deep in the tree. If you're a woodpecker, it's pretty easy to get at. So what they do is they basically just flake away the bark. This is actually a gallery. So this is one of the larval galleries right here underneath the bark, and the woodpecker just stripped away enough bark to grab that nice fat juicy larva right underneath the bark. And it's not like a pileated woodpecker. If you've seen a pileated woodpecker hole, I mean, they just dismantle a tree, and the holes are, you know, fist size. Well, there's no really deep holes here because the insects are so close to the surface. They're right underneath the bark. The adults don't overwinter, and it's the larvae that stay alive in the tree over the winter time. As I said, is a kind of a pre-pupal phase where they're ready to change into adults at the first sign of spring the next year, and then fly out and start the cycle over again. What happens is that about this time of the year, those pupa are developing into adults. And what will happen in mid-May to early June is that they will emerge from the trees as adults. The flight period for emerald ash borer is May to September 1 generally. By September 1, you know, they stop flying. Female emerald ash borers lay 30 to 60 eggs at a shot, and they can mate more than once a season. Emerald ash borer eggs are laid in the little bark crevices, so they don't insert them into the tree. They lay them individually in the little cracks in the bark that kind of scatter around, and then the larvae hatch in 7 to 10 days, and then they start their burrow into the tree. The adults never enter the tree themselves. They just lay eggs, and the larvae then go into the tree, and then they start chewing away. They'll be entering the tree throughout the summertime. They'll continue to chew, and they start off really, you know, quite small. Eventually they can be about 2.5, 3 inches long and maybe 1/4 of an inch wide. They chew the phloem, which is right underneath the bark. They don't go into the inner wood, and that's what causes trouble for the trees, because as they chew, they're continually disrupting basically the circulatory effect of the tree. So phloem is what brings the sugars down to the roots, and that's what they're disrupting. One of the first signs that you see on a live tree in the middle of the summer is that the crown, the very top, will start to thin out. So it'll start to lose leaves. Branches will die. It'll what they call thin from the top. So you'll see it look kind of skimpy and weird and have no leaves in the top of the tree like it should. Once you get a set of emerald ash borer in the tree, you know, and their larvae emerge, the adults emerge, they'll keep reinfesting the tree again and again until it's completely done. Usually they say a fully infested tree, or one that's significantly infested, will die within 3 to 4 years. So what we're seeing here, this little bark chipping, is one of the first signs you might see in the wintertime. If you came back to this tree in the summertime, it will have very little in the way of leaves on the top, or to start to look kind of sparse. What will happen right towards the end, or one of the end point of its life, is it'll have very little on the top, and you'll see what's called epicormic branches. So there'll be branches that just start to emerge at the base of the tree, and usually they'll be kind of right below where the infestation is. So it's right where the sugars stop, because they can't be translocated in the tree. So you get all that energy kind of locked down the base of the tree, and it causes the latent buds to just explode and form many side branches. The insects did not do this. This was done with a draw knife just to expose. They wanted to fully verify the level of infestation. You can tell how many larvae were in here. These are the galleries. They call them serpentine galleries, whereas some larvae would just go in kind of straight lines. They do a serpentine. They get thicker and thicker. You can see that this is where the larva was very young, and then as it got older, the gallery got larger and larger. The level of that bark stripping is pretty much all the way up the tree. So this was a fully infested tree and is not going to survive.
Here's something that every sportsman and woman should be interested in. Chris Ann Hall, constitutional attorney, author, speaker, and radio host, will be in Escanaba and Gladstone on May 6th through the 9th. Chris Ann is an attorney and former prosecutor who travels the country teaching the Constitution and the history that gave us our founding documents. She's a disabled Army veteran, a Russian linguist, a mother, a pastor's wife, and a patriot. On May 6th, she'll be speaking at the Bay College Bessie Center Theater on the topic Disarming America. On the 7th, it's the Roots of Liberty Seminar at Hereford and Hops. On the 8th, Founding Mothers at Hereford and Hops. And at the Grace Church in Gladstone on the 9th, talking about religious freedom. For information about attending any of these events, contact the Delta County Gun Owners Association. And trout season opened this past weekend, so good luck to all the trout fishermen out there. Well, that's it for tonight. If you'd like to keep tabs on what's coming up on Discovering, or see where we've been, you can join us on Facebook or go to 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.